What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So would you believe me if I told you there was a controversy on Twitter over the weekend? Seems like there's controversies on that website all the time with social media and people just clashing constantly about things. But it looks like one controversy is centering around a game and a call for censorship on, even going as far as to call Nintendo out, the platform holder, for allowing this game on their system in the first place. We'll go over that here today. Also, we're going to talk about Microsoft's response to a class action lawsuit, moving really to try to kind of throw the case out of the courtroom a bit to arbitration with stick drift on their Xbox One controllers. And we're also going to talk about Nier Automata, as the last secret has been found after 4 years. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. We're going to start today with F-Zero GX, or just F-Zero in general. F-Zero GX, fantastic GameCube game. If you have not played it, you need to. I don't know, maybe you need to go get a GameCube in the game, or just use Dolphin and play it there, I guess. But it still looks amazing to this day, even with just a standard GameCube, Eon HDMI out to a nice TV. It's gonna look great. Runs really, really well, 60 frames per second, but we haven't had anything from F-Zero since then. However, it does look like people are still interested in making an F-Zero game, specifically a producer from F-Zero GX. Putting aside the odds of it happening, I must admit, I have a lot of affection for F-Zero GX. If the opportunity were to present itself, I wouldn't mind. And in that case, I'd like to make it a challenging game. I believe that if Nintendo just wants a racing game that is fun and accessible, they already have Mario Kart for that purpose. And this was in an interview with Red Bull France and Toshihiro Nagoshi from the Yakuza series, and it brings up a good point here. F-Zero and Mario Kart would have a hard time coexisting, I think, because there's not a massive difference if they want F-Zero to just be like a fun and accessible racing game. I like the idea of making it harder or just more difficult than Mario Kart maybe, or going in the direction of a racing adventure game or more of an action-oriented racing game. Just do something to change it up, because with how successful Mario Kart is, there's not a huge reason for Nintendo to do things outside of like what they did with Nintendo Land for F-Zero, because they don't really need another racing game. Either way, I would like to see another F-Zero game, or even if they just said, hey, we'll just grab F-Zero GX, here you go, we'll put it on the Switch and we'll charge like, I mean, it's Nintendo, like $40 for it, right? I mean, I would just like to see them do something with F-Zero again. Also, we had an update for 13 Sentinels and the sales that it's been able to do since November, I believe, last year. It came out in Japan first, and then it found its way to the Western audience. But we can see in the holiday card from Atlus, say, in this message, Atlus confirms that the highly acclaimed Vanillaware sci-fi adventure game, 13 Sentinels, has sold over 300,000 copies worldwide since its release in Japan a year ago on November 28th, 2019. All right, so I picked this one up on Black Friday because it was marked down fairly well, and I wasn't 100% sure how into the game I would be, since I'm not as into like the heavily story-driven narrative experiences that are basically like visual novels, right? But this, I heard a lot of high praise from it. I picked it up. I like the art style, and I'm a few hours into it, and okay, yeah, it's pretty good so far, even for someone like me who's not as into these type of games. But 300,000 copies. I know they were happy with it, but I feel like it could have been more if it was everywhere else too, or at least somewhere else other than the PS4. I mean, the obvious choice would be, yeah, put it on the Switch. It's super hot in Japan right now. A game like that, visual novel-esque games, yeah, they would work on the Switch with a portable system, or on the Vita, but there's no more Vita, so the Switch is like the next one up, or at least on PC. It seems strange for Atlus with their tunnel vision right now when it comes to these single platform releases, but we'll see what they do going into the holidays for 2021. As we hear it's Persona's anniversary coming up. We'll see if they still keep that as a PlayStation-only type franchise for their series there, or they actually start to branch out, drop it on PC and Switch and others. Oh, and we may have actually had a leak for a game, a big port too, not like a smaller port. Like this would be closer to Outer Worlds and even Witcher 3. Check this out on Nintendo's own website. If you scroll down to February 18th for their timeline of Switch releases, Kingdom Come Deliverance Royal Edition is apparently coming out February 18th. I mean, that's a month and a half from now, so they might want to get to announcing that is the case. This is a game that had a hard time running on the PS4 and the Xbox One when it came out in 2018. It's an action-adventure RPG, and this is one they would have to get a pretty good studio on, I would assume, to make this happen. I believe it runs on CryEngine, so we'll see how that one would work out. I mean, it's odd that it would pop up here without any intention to release it on the Switch since it's Nintendo's own website, but maybe they have a partner showcase coming up soon in January. We'll see. And guys, some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with this controversy around a game called Sense, a Cyberpunk Ghost Story. First, let's talk about what this game exactly is. If we go over to the Steam page for it, we can see it says a 2.5D horror game inspired by Clock Tower and Fatal Frame, mixing cyberpunk with traditional Cantonese folklore. With careful attention to pacing, atmosphere, storytelling, Sense hopes to return the horror genre to its roots by celebrating visceral horror and the slow, fearful creep of dread. Very positive for recent reviews, very positive for all reviews. This one came out August 25th, 2020 on Steam. So it is already out. Like, this is done by Top Hat Studios as the publisher. And when I saw that, I said, well, it's already out. Why are people upset about this releasing on the Switch? Well, it appears most of the complaints that were shared by Top Hat Studios had to do with the over-the-top adult themes in the game down to the characters and the events themselves. Now, from here on, I'm gonna assume that everything that is happening here is true and correct, mostly because I do see this as a good way to market the game through a bit of a PR stunt here, but I'm just gonna operate on the level that everything here is legit, okay, as we go through this. So let's go over to the message here for Top Hat Studios that they put out in response to all of these different messages they received through Twitter DMs, emails, and other places. They say, "We reject any and all of the aforementioned brazen characterizations of the game and would like to reiterate our principles against tampering with creators' expressions. We would also like to reiterate this game is rated ESRB M17+, PEGI 18. This is not an AO game, nor have any laws been broken. As some social media commenters have ridiculously claimed out of their biases, the game's rating reflects the target audience, and yet this fact is lost on those who have been led by a will to blindly crusade against their false perceptions. The game will not be censored. We categorically refuse." And then to follow up that message, they had a ton of different messages they received with screenshots, even kind of covering up the names and all this. You can see several of them here. Some of them even saying, "How could you let Nintendo do this? I'm gonna get a hold of Nintendo," things like that. So like Nintendo's been brought into this too. And so this brings up the conversation, of course, with Nintendo and Sony, because we've talked about this before, where Sony has a much more strict policy on certain types of content that can be released on their platform with the PlayStation 5, the PlayStation 4, and we know Nintendo takes a bit of a different approach where they're more hands-off. They say, okay, look, if you pass the ESRB, which this did, it's mature rated, they went through that process, it passes certification and QA, so it's not gonna destroy your Switch if you fire the game up, then you're good to go. And trust me, we've seen some pretty terrible games on the Switch eShop where even I go, wow, how is this here right now? But it passes any type of ratings reviews it needs to. It passes QA and certification. There it is. And by that, I mean, they're just terrible cash grab games, obviously. Like basketball, where there were no sound effects and there's a little like stick figure looking thing. Yeah. But this, on the other hand, has to do more with adult themes, as that's like the big complaint with a lot of those messages. The over the top characters, the adult themes, the events, all of this. Which is a strange thing because again, we have a rating system for that. Like the eShop has a rating. You can go through and you can go through the parental app and you can say, nope, I don't want them playing this, or this, these kind of ratings. And that's it. They'd have to put in a password if your kids are playing on the Switch. And don't look through the eShop then if this is gonna push you over the edge right now, because there are, I would say, worse games right now actually in the eShop that you can't find. You know why you can't find them? Because the eShop's set up terribly. In fact, more attention has been brought to this game now more than it probably ever would have been, especially if it just released on the eShop. 2 days later, there'd have been 60 other games right above it, kind of bearing it. It's basically the Streisand effect, and that's why I said before, I'm gonna operate that this is on the level here, but like, I mean, that's a good way to push things up through marketing and get people talking about the game ahead of its, January 7th release. But yeah, I mean, to me, they can do what they want with the game as long as Nintendo's cool with it. And they're like, yeah, you're good to go. I don't really know why they would change things or alter things. It's already out on Steam. It's been on Steam for months. So I don't really know what the issue is here necessarily. Maybe someone can let me know the opposite side of things down in the comments. But for me, Nintendo probably doesn't need to be stepping in and completely changing up games, telling them to do this, this, and this. Nintendo's just trying to get as many games they can on the eShop like as it is right now. That's pretty obvious. So Nintendo keeping a more open platform when it comes to this stuff, I think is good, as long as the games go through the ESRB and everyone's in agreement that it's rated mature and you're good to go there and you have a parental app. Next up, let's talk about Microsoft and their Xbox stick drift. It's something that has not been in the news nearly as much as Joy-Con drift, but Microsoft has actually been fighting a class action lawsuit for a little while now when it comes to their Elite controllers and their Xbox controllers, and of course the stick just kind of drifting off on one side or the other, even without you inputting a direction. Well, now it looks like Microsoft is looking to move out of the courtroom into arbitration. This, according to VGC, now a new motion by Microsoft is called on the Washington court to compel arbitration, which the corporation argues is in accordance with the services agreement the plaintiffs agreed to when they purchased their Xbox controllers. Arbitration would see the individual drifting disputes resolved outside of the courtroom by an impartial adjudicator whose decision would be final and binding. Plaintiffs repeatedly agreed not to bring a lawsuit like this in court. Instead, they assented to the Microsoft Services Agreement and to warranty agreements in which they promised they would arbitrate disputes on an individual basis using a consumer-friendly process before the American Arbitration Association. The Federal Arbitration Act requires enforcing these agreements. And I've said this before, those long agreements that we kind of next right past or go through real quick, so we're not going to read 38 pages of text for these things. That's generally in there. Like, there's something about not going to courtrooms and having arbitration instead. And I have had some people mention in comments that that's not necessarily binding all over the place, all over the world, and it's kind of case by case based depending on where you are. But it seems like Microsoft is ready to move away from the courtroom with this. And the interesting thing here, as pointed out by VGC, Nintendo did the same thing and it seemed to work. They actually were able to move it to arbitration, which means most likely that's setting a precedent for Microsoft to do the same thing here. And I'm not necessarily sure what will happen then when they move out of the courtroom into arbitration. I don't know if they will actually resolve this or reach any real agreement that is good for the consumer or people who are pushing this class action lawsuit right now who have run into issues. I mean, there's documented proof on the situation there, but they are also alleging that Microsoft knew about this and pushed it out anyway. That's something that's kind of hard to prove, but we'll see what happens here. Most likely it will move to arbitration after what Nintendo was able to do, and then who knows at that point if we get any kind of real resolution to stick drift on the Xbox controllers. At least maybe it'll make Microsoft think twice when they do the Xbox Elite Controller Series 3. Next up, let's talk about Nier Automata and a secret that's been hidden since it came out. In fact, the developers of this game told us there was one last real big secret left that no one had found, at least until now. And this game is a pretty good one for speed running. There's a full community around it, and this cheat code is going to change that completely. Check this out. This is posted up on Twitter by Lance McDonald. I found a cheat code in Nier Automata that allows you to skip to the last ending immediately after killing the first boss and unlock the bonus modes. I'll do a full video soon. It's not a glitch. It's an actual cheat code hard-coded into the engine. And you can see here them seemingly running around after that final boss, inputting a bunch of different directions and jumps. And then, yes, they teleport to the end. It's really odd to see that happen. It's super well hidden. And we can see Yokotaro here, who does chime in, just confirming, Nier Automata spoilers, 3 years, 10 months, I found a cheat code in Nier Automata. That's it right there. That is the final secret in Nier. It's impressive stuff, but think about this. It's part of the game. Like, there's no real exploit going on. You're not altering or changing code necessarily outside of the game itself. You can put the game in and do this. That should be a legit way to speedrun the game then. So all of a sudden, speedrunning records are gonna be shattered immediately. If you can just, after the first boss, jump to basically the end of the game then and complete it, yeah, those scores are gonna go down massively, the times. So I would assume now people are gonna start using this code as like the speedrunning default now. How fast you can get through it, and this cheat code's thrown in. So it's gonna be interesting to see that all done. And they said they're gonna release a video on how to do this correctly, because it seems like they spent a lot of time looking through the game to figure all of this out. But impressive stuff there, the final secret found in Nier. In our last bit of news, let's talk about the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 4 Pro. As we assume they're going to be getting discontinued as we go along here, we already talked about how on Sony's own PlayStation Direct store, they did list it as discontinued basically and then kind of brought it back after a few days. But now it looks like retailers in Japan are starting to let customers know that they are being discontinued. We can see this tweet here. Dear customers, due to the manufacturer ending production, the following products will not be restocked. PS4 500GB Glacier White, PS4 1TB Jet Black, PS4 1TB Glacier White, 2TB Jet Jet Black, and then we do have the PS4 Pro 1TB Glacier White. Not mentioning, however, the PS4 Pro Jet Black, but I do think it's a matter of time. We're gonna have that discontinued probably this year, and Sony is working very, very hard right now to get more PS5s out there. Like I said before, they want this transition to be quick, going from the PS4 to the PlayStation 5, and right now, they have hype on their side and demand. I mean, everyone's buying PlayStation 5 consoles right now, and they are selling them rapidly. They are just never in stock. So yes, the demand isn't the issue here. It is the supply. Now, if they can stop producing PS4 systems and put more effort towards PS5, that's certainly something that would help, and that appears to be what they're looking at here. But think about this. The PS4 Pro just doesn't fit into their library of consoles anymore because it's still $400. Why would a retailer carry a $400 PS4 Pro when it's the same price as the PlayStation 5 all digital, and it's what, $100 less than the PS5 itself? And for me, the system that still makes sense, I guess, to make from the PS4 console would be the PS4 Slim, especially if you can make it cheaper. $200 and put it out there. It's still a pretty good media device. It does play some of these newer games. I mean, look, Horizon Forbidden West is going to be a PS4 game, apparently, from what we've heard, and we just saw Spider-Man release on the system along with Sackboy. So I think there's a place there for a cheap PS4 system. Like I said, $200 or less, but like a PS4 Pro at $400, there's no point. So yes, a lot of these SKUs are going to be discontinued in retail stores everywhere. So if you want, I guess, just a new boxed PS4 that you can put up somewhere for a collection, you might want to go out and grab them soon. And we'll finish up with a comment of the day as we're seeing here. This is from Michael saying, so anyone hear anything about when that SSD expansion slot will be functional on the PS5? Come on, Sony. So when you put an NVMe drive in that slot for the PS5 right now, it just tells you to remove it and shut down the PS5 and then turn it back on without it in that slot. So I don't know what the holdup is. I assume they're testing, maybe making some deals in the background so they have a branded one with, like, I don't know, we've seen Seagate do some stuff. We've seen Toshiba. Maybe they get with Western Digital. There's a lot of things they could do there to make a PlayStation branded NVMe drive that's specific for the PS5. Otherwise, we're just gonna go down a list and pick ones out, and we'll be like, okay, this one's really good, use this one's not. But the other question is, why haven't they added support for hard drives to store PS5 games off of your PS5? People have already filled up the space on the PlayStation 5 itself, so to be able to take a game completely off your PS5, store it on the hard drive, and then pull it back when you want to play it, that's at least something they could do sooner, I would assume, because Microsoft already does it with the Xbox, so it's just strange. I don't know. Sony's got to get on the ball here with some of this storage stuff, because yeah, people are already running out of it. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit the like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today, whether it's since a Cyberpunk ghost story and the controversy around that one. Do you think Nintendo should do something about this and tell them to alter or change something if they want it on the eShop? Or do you think Nintendo should stay hands off, say, hey, you know what? This is gonna be on the eShop, it's been rated mature, and if you guys don't like it, don't buy it, and hey, it'll probably disappear into the abyss that is the eShop. And then what do you think about Microsoft's class action lawsuit with stick drift? Have you had stick drift on your Xbox One controller? And what about Nier having its last secret finally found? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.